As a dairy farmer, what challenges do you have to face daily?
Daily challenges on a dairy farm can vary depending on what the season is. Most of it's to do with animal husbandry though. You've always got to be conscious every day you get up to make sure that the animals are well catered for and well cared for. You need to know they've got their feed for the day, either the block of grass they're eating it in the morning or the night, especially when there's conditions that aren't conducive to good management, you've got to sometimes vary and work with the climate around you. But animal husbandry is the most important thing. The other thing is every day you're looking at how your farm can return the best feed available. So you're forever assessing the pastures, looking at different ways of doing things so as you can get the maximum amount of the land that you have, and as far as feed value goes, and convert that back into the cattle so they can give you the production that actually gives you the return at the end of the day. So those two things. One's the performance of the cattle and their welfare, and the second thing would be how well the farm's going and its production and how it's performing.
Where do you see the dairy industry headed in the future?
Dairy industry in the future, I think, Kirsty, is probably going to be fairly interesting for us here in Australia, because I think there's a real chance that we'll be seen as a fresh food bowl for dairy products, for especially the Asian market and China as well. So I think that's a really positive thing. We've got a reasonably decent sized population here in Australia, so there's always going to be demand for fresh milk and fresh dairy products in our own population, but the real future, I think, lies in developing diverse and quality export products that can be exported to the big need in other areas of the world, especially populations that aren't used to dairy products but see their value as far as nutritional value, and so I think that's a really important thing. I think the other thing I'd like to think that we can progress towards in the future for the dairy industry is seeing it very much as a vital part of the health and welfare of the Australian population. Sometimes I think agriculture is underrated that way when we feed the nation in many ways, but dairy in particular, because there's so much can be gained in adolescent and junior years in eating and drinking dairy products for good strength and good bones and all those sorts of things too. So I'd like to think that there's an increased awareness of the value of dairying in the future, domestically for the population, but also primarily for the value of the export, and because we have a clean, green environment and the rest of the world sees us as that way, both quarantine wise and also the quality of our agricultural products. That puts us in a good position to be trying to export to people that really want good fresh food.
What's your favourite part of being a dairy farmer?
Being a dairy farmer, I think, to me is it's exciting because you're working with nature all the time, and that's always a lot of fun. It's really diverse. There's no day the same at all, and the other thing I really like about it is that you're working with an animal in a dairy cow, the humble dairy cow, that is probably the most efficient converter of raw materials known to man that can produce a life-supporting product. And that's pretty exciting when you get in behind the science of it, and how they do that, how to manage that and work with them is a lot of fun, but it's also very rewarding as well too. But I love the idea of being able to get out into the open, into the agricultural side of things, and trying to do things a little bit better all the time, trying to improve the way we see things, embrace technology, whether it's in agricultural sense or in technology as far as managing the farm goes as well. I guess there are frustrations to it, but the enjoyment and the challenges far outweigh the frustrations.
What sustainability measures have you implemented on your dairy farm?
That's a good question, and sustainability is always a really big issue for us on the dairy farm. Our farm's on the coastal plain, very close to the coast, and has a river system running through it. One of the things that we've embarked on of recent years is working with the Southern Rivers Catchment Management Authority to help with things like bank regeneration work, and also ridding the property of unwanted, I suppose, weeds and pests, and that's been good too. We're finding that working with a lot of those sorts of groups is really helpful when it comes to sustainability measures, because we've discovered after a while that fencing off the river system is actually quite a good thing. We end up generating more feed on the farm by fencing off the river system than we thought that we were generating by allowing them to have access to everything. So there are some real pluses in it. With regard to other areas of the farm, there's a lot of measures that we do every day. We recycle our water about 4 times before it's actually let go into waste, and then when it does go to waste, it goes into an effluent pond. This is most of our washdown water. It goes into the effluent pond, which we irrigate out as a liquid form, but also we collect the solids and we'll put that back out into the paddock as fertiliser. So recycling water is really important to us. It's too expensive to waste. Most of our water is, for stock water, is dam or river water. The second thing that's really important about sustainability is that most of the time they're resources, but just in the wrong place. As far as the manure from the cows and the water resources, we've just got to try and remanage them, put them in the right place so as we can make best use of them. Other areas of sustainability that we've got to look at more and more is our electricity issues. We don't do enough with that. We haven't got solar at this point. So we try and minimise our electricity use by different sort of metering, but also the way we manage our dairy plant equipment and things like power saving equipment and all these sorts of things. So, but sustainability on every property is a huge issue.
Have you seen the Archibull program helping to get the message out about Australian farmers?
The Archibull program's really important because it's helping that education process at all levels of our community. In this particular case, it's especially particular to schools and to students, and they can have a hands-on involvement with the Archibull program and learning about different sectors in agriculture, especially in our case dairying, and what goes towards making up dairying. And most of us as dairy farmers like to see ourselves as scientists, using all the aspects of science, whether it's agronomy or nutrition or climatology, or whether it's a whole range of different things to try and do our job better. So the Archibull Archibull program particularly helps with the community understanding that and probably hopefully valuing agriculture a little bit more too, and seeing it as a real contributor to the good life that we have here in Australia, and especially here on the South Coast. It's a great existence, and a lot of the agriculture in the area helps maintain the clean, green atmosphere that we like to live in. But for a practical reason, it also has a very valuable benefit and income base to the rural economy as well.